For the second time in 3 years, the Austin Bruins are heading to the Central Division Final here in the Robertson Cup playoffs. It was an incredible first round after going down 2-0. The Bruins completing the reverse sweep against the Minot Minotaurs, including a dominant 5-1 victory in Game 5 here at Riverside Arena. The Bruins are looking ahead now to face the number 1 seed Bismarck Bobcats as they hit the road this weekend for Games 1 and 2. I'm David Coyer. This is head coach Steve Howard, and welcome to another edition of the Austin Bruins Coaches Show. Coach, we didn't have a show last week, trying to focus a little bit more on the playoffs, focus on that trip to Minot, and I think, it worked out for the best, the reverse sweep there in Minot. How good did it feel to head to Pepsi Rink and Mesa Arena and get those 2 wins to bring Game 5 back here in Austin?
It felt great. I think, our message to all the players was the fact that, I had everybody look in the arena right before we left. We had that last practice there before we took off and jumped on the bus. And I just asked our veteran guys if it was the last time we're going to play hockey here. And they said no. And I'm just happy that we got that Game 5 back here, and it showed.
And on the coaches show that we did previewing the playoff and kind of looking at it, we talked about how important special teams was going to be. I mean, special teams has been really that conversation topic. We've had a lot of these shows. And looking at the series, the Bruins hadn't allowed a power play goal since being in Minot at the end of March. Went through the first several games without a power play goal. Ended up going 0 for 15 on the series, but the PK still dominant. Was the special teams, did it play out the way that you thought it was going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we plan on having to kill, when we go into games. And when we have to kill, our guys need to get up for it and use it in a way to create some positive momentum. And I thought the penalty kill was lights out. Al Rooney runs that. He does a great job. And I don't know how many penalties, how many power plays they had and how many penalties we had to kill, but I think it was over 20-something. So, for us to go for 15 on the power play, it was a scenario that as long as the penalty kill was doing their part, and I think the power play created some positive momentum. We had some looks. We just, at the end of the day, we didn't get one past their goalie, and we ended up winning the series. And when you look back on it, I think you can always take a look at the fact that the PK did so well, and I focus more on the special teams winning that battle and ultimately the team winning the series. At the end of the day, it's about the team moving on. It's not about, what stat did this. At the end of the game, somebody had said we were playing for solo at that point, and, I corrected them. It's playoffs, regular season. Yeah, we're playing for solo at that point. Right now, we're playing for the Austin Bruins, and we want to win the game. Even if there's a minute 30 left or whatever, it's about the team. And Solo would say the same thing if he was sitting here right now. He could care less if that was a shutout victory, an overtime victory, or if it was a 5-1 victory, which it was. And he just wanted the win.
Minot going 2 for 22 on the power play through those 5 games. Both of those power play goals coming in that 3-goal third period in Game 4. But focusing more on Jack Solomon there and Carl Axelson. Carl only getting 1 appearance. It was the overtime loss in Game 2, but he played lights out. The other 4 games, Jack Solomon playing lights out. That 1-2 punch working to perfection as it has all season long. What do you expect now coming into this series against Bismarck, in which the goalies during the regular season had success against Bismarck as well? Again, didn't show in the win column, but what are you expecting out of your goalies in this series?
I'm not expecting anything. I want them to play well, and play with confidence right now. At this point, if you start expecting things and you start thinking about things too far in advance or whatever, it usually doesn't work out that well. So right now we're focused on Friday, and that's the bottom line. It's a scenario for both Axe and Solo that we just want to go out there and have some fun with this and enjoy this moment. I mean, it was pretty big for us to do the reverse sweep thing, and like it's said it to a lot of the guys already. I went in that room afterwards. I said, I've never been a part of a reverse sweep as a player or as a coach, and had my backs against the wall quite a few times, and gotten one of those wins back before, but never have I done that. So that was a pretty big feather in our cap, and fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, Bismarck did the same exact thing, which that's why you can look at it and you got to go, well, neither team really has an advantage right now. We, you can take it however you want. You can look at it and go, okay, well, you're rolling right now. You're going to take that right into game one, and, they played the same night. So it doesn't matter. And then you can talk about the rest. You can be like, well, you guys didn't really get any rest. They didn't get any rest either. Mm-hmm. It's a new season, and this is our next step. So we got to try to go in there and battle on game one and see what happens.
You mentioned that Bismarck and Aberdeen also the reverse sweep, and I know in my time watching hockey, I mean, you've been in the hockey community a lot longer than I have. That's not anything that I've ever really seen where two teams were about to play each other basically at the same path to that. And when you really break down the games too, I mean, Bismarck really was playing from behind in the majority of them. In their victory in Game 3, it was a very similar score to what the Bruins had. And then I made the joke that about 2 minutes before the Bruins score in double overtime, Bismarck's going in double overtime as well. So the very identical series, and you mentioned it there where they're identical. It's not like one team got a little bit more rest than the other. Do you see that? Not necessarily as an advantage, but how do you take that, I guess, going into this upcoming series that both you and Bismarck kind of played exact same series?
Yeah, no, I just think it's an even playing field right now when it comes to that. The one thing we got to remember is, last series we had home ice advantage, and, that was a big deal for us, especially in Game 5, and Bismarck's earned that right. They're the best team in the league. So, they got home ice advantage. They're getting these first two there, and obviously, for both Bismarck and Austin, it wasn't much of an advantage to start the series, mm-hmm. But it definitely was when it came to Game 5. And I think both Garrett and myself, we want our team to take advantage of playing at home, but more importantly, we want to continue our road success as well.
And you mentioned Garrett Roth there. We'll talk about your relationship with him in just a moment. Still focusing on that Minot series. At the beginning of the series, it felt, and you said in a press conference earlier today, that you saw it as your team playing, it felt like they were playing a regular season game in January. It almost felt, from my point of view, that the team was lacking a little bit of playoff experience, and it seemed like a couple of guys were just trying to shake off those cobwebs of playing in some of their first playoff games. Would you say that's accurate, and that there was a little bit of tension with some maybe of the younger skaters?
Yeah, well, look, everybody handles pressure differently, and that's what they got to experience is the pressure. But some didn't view it that way. I think when you're playing in playoffs, like everything's heightened. Your senses are you're at an all-time high, and you're in a dead focus mindset of we want to win. Your compete comes out. And I kind of felt like we were very casual in some aspects, and it showed. And, getting to do film and talking about it, I thought we came out, played well enough to win on Saturday. Here, especially in that first period, I think shots were 20-7 in that first period. And, they kind of leveled it off in the second and third. And then obviously scoring that OT goal. It was us just having a few too many errors, and Minot's a good hockey team. They can score goals, and we gave some of their top guys some grade A chances. And when you do that, it's tough, especially, both goalies, both nights, Solo and Axe had a 94 save percentage. Like, you should win hockey games when a goalie saves that much. And, going into Game 3, I just felt like our guys knew, like, this could be the end of our season unless we ramp things up, and I was proud of them. They did. They ramped it up, and even that Game 4 third period when the adversity really hit us over the 4 minutes and they tied it, they were able to stay composed and go out there and get the next one, and that's huge. That's important. We talked about us as a team and as a group, like going through playoffs. We had it happen to us 2 years ago. You need some unsung heroes. You need some guys to step up at the right moments. And, Gavin Haruza didn't even play the first 2 games. And here he is. He plays game 3 and 4. And in game 5, like, he scores some big goals for us. And that's a kid that's, like, running with it. You know what I mean? And there's been some other guys, but at the same time, I'm just I'm proud of the group. And that's the way it is right now. It's no individual guy right now. It's the group and whatever it takes.
And in those first couple games, a lot of those top scorers didn't feel like they were producing. In fact, in games 1 and 2, the only 2 goals scored were by Xander Lipset and Ryan Lund. Then the top line, that all-Canadian line, as we like to call it, started to produce a little bit more, but only 3 goals. And that you talk about the secondary scoring, and your Gavin Haruzas have 2 goals. John Hirschfeld, Evan Malkasian really stepping it up. We've talked all season long about secondary scoring. It seems like it's starting to produce now. How are you going to work to make sure that continues to work while also trying to elevate that top line again?
Yeah, well, first off, Bismarck has a lot of scoring, and they're good from the top down. Every team at this point, you're trying to shut the other team's top guys down and their power play and this and that. That's what playoff hockey should be and what it is. At the end of the day, things like that happen. It's about playing against the guy across from you, and it can be a moment where you're playing against a guy that's maybe more defensive-minded, or maybe it's playing against a guy who's more offensive-minded. And understanding the situation and being a smart hockey player, if you're down a goal, you got to push it a little bit. If you're up a goal, you certainly need to be on the right side of plays and pucks. And I think that was something we were maybe a little bit loose on. I wouldn't say we were bad, but we were a little bit loose on in the first 2 games, and we were very good at in games 3, 4, and 5. And I think the results showed from it. So,
would you say there was a specific turning point, whether that was in Game 3 or Game 4, that you really felt like maybe the momentum was starting to shift the Bruins' way?
No, you know what it was? It was just looking at our guys. I think after dropping that overtime goal, we had some meetings, some phone calls, and some things where. And it wasn't us, the coaches initiating. It was the boys. It was the players. So that said, kind of gave us as a staff that confidence that we're good. They knew, and they knew what they needed to do. And, they were coming in talking about the plan, and what they wanted to do. They wanted to get back here and make sure that Game 5 was played in our building, and we did it.
Now, looking ahead to this Bismarck series, a tough regular season series this year that saw the Bruins take 2 of them, force a shootout back in November. It was a hard-fought series all season long. There were a couple where, it really came down to a struggling third period or even the final seconds of the third period. The Bruins have come a long way since the beginning of the year. They've come a long way really since the beginning of March, the last time that they saw Bismarck. What are some big changes that you've seen now, in the month of April, even those last 2 regular season weekends to the playoffs? What are some big changes you've seen leading into this Bismarck series since the last time you saw the Bobcats?
I wouldn't say there's a ton of changes necessarily. They're healthy.
Sure.
That was a big deal. They got healthy right before we played them, and I think they ended up going on a bit of a run after that too. And so looking at Bismarck, like, they're a good hockey team from top down. And when they got some of those 20-year-olds healthy again, some of their best players playing in the lineup each night, like, you need to, once again, shut those guys down. And everybody knows in order to win a cup, you got to have all 3 aspects be really well, and that's the goaltending, the defense, and the forwards. And you're going to play your best hockey right now, at least you should. And if you do, then it's about who imposes their will more. I thought playing those games against Bismarck were good for us. They're a strong team, and they take advantage of small mistakes, and we made some small mistakes. I think both games, were 3-1 with an empty netter. I could be wrong, but it was something along those lines. It was 3-1, and then the empty netter was 4-1. I think it was mirrored images of each other. And, our guys got to see, like, this is a team that's getting in playoff mode, and I thought it was a really good thing for us to, it's never good to lose, but at the same time, lose at that point because it was a wake-up call. And, they could probably say the same thing the weekend before. I think they played Minot, and they only had 9 forwards dressed, and that said, they're clicking at all cylinders right now. They're riding a high of winning that round one, and we're going to expect their best, and we got to give ours.
You mentioned that they got hot at the right time. Month of March, going undefeated 9-0, finishing out the season on a 13-game run before losing back-to-back in overtime against Aberdeen. And you also mentioned they've got a lot of 20-year-olds, a lot of veterans on this Bismarck team. Minot had 13 20-year-olds and took the Bruins to Game 5. Bismarck with 16 20-year-olds. And it's no secret, I've brought it up a couple times on my broadcast, that Bruins only with 5 returners this year and only with 5 20-year-olds on the roster. Do you see that playing into a factor that Bismarck has just a few more veterans on their team?
No, it shouldn't at this point. The only reason I bring that up is because we only had 5 when we went to the Robertson Cup 2 years ago. When it comes to 20-year-olds, it's the last stop or area where you're going to be playing under age restriction. And there's a bit of an age restriction at college, but it's more so when you start your clock, you got 5 years to play for. So at the end of the day, like, these guys are going to be playing with guys that are older than them and younger than them. And, everybody knows that you get to the NHL and you got 18 and 19-year-olds sometimes playing against a 40-year-old. It's just, age doesn't matter, but the experience, I think, can factor that in. Guys are more comfortable. I think when it comes to the amount of games you've played, I think that holds a little bit. But it also, you find out some young guys like Gavin Aruza are going to step up in those big moments, and they're not fazed by that pressure. And so that's the important piece, is you learn what your team's all about in those moments. I think the 20-year-olds, it's everything's a bit ramped up for them because it's their last kick at the can, right? So that's where you don't have to question it or wonder if they're going to be ready to play. They're going to have 16 guys ready to go over there for sure. It's a matter of your young guys following your leaders. And, I thought our young guys needed a little bit of a wake-up after games 1 and 2, and we found it. Now we can't exhale. We can't sit back and go, okay, we're in game 2. We don't want to do the same thing. We want to go out there and play our best hockey. And you know what? If we lose a game, if we lose whatever, it's part of it. I want to play our best hockey. And may the best team win and go on to the Robertson Cup.
I think one of the big stories of this, well, really the regular season, but even more so now here in the playoffs, Garrett Roth in his first year at the helm of the Bismarck Bobcats. A little bit of history between Roth and the Austin Bruins. Now, Garrett Roth had a long, nice career with the Bobcats, holding a lot of records as well. But it was 2 years ago in that Robertson Cup final. He was behind the bench of the Oklahoma Warriors, who defeated the Bruins in that Robertson Cup final. So you have that experience against Roth in the playoffs. But the two of you have that long mutual respect for each other, even coached the Central Division team at Top Prospects this year. Just talk about your relationship with Garrett Roth and how you see that going through coaching against him here in this Central Division final.
Yeah, I've known Garrett probably right around 15 years, maybe a little more. But he used to be an assistant in Aberdeen a long time ago, and I ended up getting into coaching after knowing him. I was living in the cities training hockey players, and we had sent a bunch of our guys to play in Aberdeen with him. And yeah, I ended up getting into coaching, and I started coaching the NA3, and gave him a couple of calls, and I think we sent a player or two when he moved over to Bismarck. We sent a player or two out there, and then I was in Waterloo and sent a player or two to Bismarck from Waterloo, and yeah, long story short, next thing you know, we're coaching against each other, and I'm in Austin. So we had a chuckle about that a couple of years ago, right before the Robertson Cup championship game. We were talking about reminiscing of how we knew each other. But I got a lot of respect for him. That guy's he's a career coach. He's put a lot of time and effort into being successful. He's won a championship. Unfortunately, it was at the hands of the Austin Bruins, but our hats off to him. They had a good team that year, and it ultimately came down to one goal at the right time. And for our guys, they know they're going to be playing against a team that's well coached, and it should be a great series.
Should be a great series indeed. Game 1 and 2 coming up this weekend, Friday, May 2nd, Saturday, May 3rd, 7:15 puck drop for both of those. You can watch that over at NATV, NAHLTV.com. Make sure you switch over to the away audio. You get to listen to me on the call. You can head over to Lansing Corners, the official road game destination of the Austin Bruins. The Bruins will be back in town for Game 3 next Friday, May 9th, 7:05 puck drop. You can get those tickets now at tickets.austinbruins.com or head over to one of our ticket vendors, Hy-Vee, Jim's Marketplace, and Games People Play. A potential Game 4 would be the following Saturday on the 10th, with a potential Game 5 that following Monday out in Bismarck. Coach, any final thoughts before this Central Division final?
No, if we can get everybody out next Friday, that's going to be huge. I think these guys really love seeing the Riverside Arena packed, and I think all the fans that came out on Monday with the severe weather, it was honestly, I thought it was pretty good that we had that many fans.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what the final count was, but there was quite a few here. It wasn't a normal night, but man, really appreciative of everybody coming out, and we hope to see you guys all back here next Friday.
Yeah, for that severe weather and it being a Monday, I think we had close to just over 700, I believe, was the final count. So again, thank you all for coming out. Made it seem like it was almost 3,000. That's how loud it got here, and everyone was rocking. So again, make sure you coming out for that Game 3 coming up on Friday, May 9th. But the Bruins hit the road for the Central Division Final against the Bismarck Bobcats this weekend. But for Coach Howard, I've been David Coyer. You've been watching another edition of the Austin Bruins Coaches Show here on YouTube. We'll see you next time.